Stick to fixing computers, that's all you're good for. My brother Marcus sneered during the shareholders' meeting, his Armani suit catching the boardroom lights as he gestured dismissively in my direction. Let the real business minds handle the money. The room erupted in snickers from my cousins, my sister Victoria. Even my own mother barely suppressed a condescending smile. But then the bank executive walked in, and everything changed. The mahogany doors swung open with authority, revealing a silver-haired man in an impeccable charcoal suit, flanked by two associates carrying leather portfolios. The laughter died instantly. "We'll need the signature of the primary stakeholder to complete the transfer," he announced, his eyes scanning the room filled with my relatives who'd spent the last hour discussing how to divide grandmother's estate without including me. I looked up from my laptop, smiled calmly, and closed the screen with a soft click that echoed through the sudden silence. "That would be me," I said quietly, watching as 20 faces turned toward me in perfect synchronization, their expressions morphing from confusion to shock. Though I believe we need to discuss some changes to the terms first. Marcus's face went from red to white in seconds. "What are you talking about, little brother? You're just here to set up the video conference system." The bank executive, Mr. Harrison, according to his gold nameplate, walked directly to my seat at the far corner of the table, the spot where they'd relegated me like I was hired help rather than family. He placed a thick folder in front of me, the kind that contained documents worth more than most people would see in 10 lifetimes. "Mr. Douglas," Harrison addressed me formally, ignoring the gasps from around the table. "As we discussed in our previous meetings, the complete transfer of Tech Nova Industries assets requires your authorization. The current valuation stands at $512 million. My mother's coffee cup shattered against the marble floor. "There must be some mistake," Victoria stammered, her perfectly manicured nails digging into the leather armrest of her chair. "Our brother he fixes computers. He lives in a one-bedroom apartment. He drives a Honda Civic, a 2015 Honda Civic," Marcus added, as if the age of my car would somehow negate what was happening. I opened the folder, reviewing the documents I'd memorized weeks ago. Every page represented a piece of the empire I'd built in silence, behind the scenes, while my family treated me like their personal tech support. "Douglas," my Uncle Robert stood up, his voice booming with the authority he thought his position as family patriarch gave him. "What's the meaning of this? How could I possibly what, Uncle?" I interrupted, something I'd never done in my 32 years of life. How could I possibly be more than the family disappointment who chose computer science over law school? More than the introvert you all mock at every family gathering? The room fell silent again. Even the air conditioning seemed to pause. 15 years ago, I began, standing up slowly, when grandmother was dying, none of you could be bothered to visit her. You were all too busy with your important careers, your social climbing, your affairs. I looked directly at Marcus when I said the last word, watching him squirm. But I was there. Every day after work, every weekend. I held her hand through the chemo. I learned about her past, her dreams, the empire she'd built from nothing only to watch her children become entitled vultures. "How dare you?" my mother started. "I'm not finished," I said firmly, and surprisingly she stopped. "Grandmother saw what none of you bothered to notice. That while you were playing business with her money, I was actually building something. That little computer repair shop you all mocked? It was a front for a software development company. Those video games I was always playing? I was beta testing the products that would eventually revolutionize data encryption." Harrison cleared his throat. "Perhaps I should explain the legal situation to everyone." He adjusted his glasses and pulled out another document. Mrs. Elizabeth Winters amended her will 6 months before her passing. She left the entire family business in a trust with very specific conditions. "We know about the trust," Victoria snapped. "We've been managing it for 5 years since she died." "You've been managing the subsidiary holdings," Harrison corrected. "The small portfolio she left for family members to oversee, worth approximately $10 million. The real estate, the investment accounts you've all been fighting over today. But the primary asset, Tech Nova Industries, her technology company, was left in a separate trust with a single beneficiary who would gain full control on their 32nd birthday." Every eye in the room turned to me. "That was last month," I said simply. The truth was elegant in its simplicity, devastating in its completeness. For 5 years, my family had been squabbling over the scraps while the main course sat untouched, unknown to them. Growing under my management from the 50 million grandmother had left me to over 500 million. This is impossible. Marcus slammed his fist on the table. We would have known. The lawyers would have told us. The lawyers did their job, Harrison interjected. They followed Mrs. Winter's explicit instructions. The information was available to any family member who bothered to read the complete trust documents. Page 247, subsection 18C, if anyone's interested. I almost laughed. Page 247. Of course none of them had read that far. They'd stopped at page 15, where the real money was detailed. You knew. My mother's voice was barely a whisper, her face pale beneath her expensive makeup. All these years, you knew and you let us. Let you what, Mother? Let you treat me like the family failure? Let you introduce me at parties as our other son, he works with computers? Let you seat me at the children's table last Christmas, even though I'm the oldest grandchild. The memory of that particular humiliation still stung. They'd actually placed me with the teenagers, claiming they needed the adult table for business discussions. But more importantly, I continued, pulling out my own set of documents, let you show me exactly who you all really are. Do you know what I've heard in 5 years of being invisible at family gatherings? Marcus, should I tell everyone about the embezzlement from Uncle Robert's company? Victoria, how about your insider trading? Mother, would you like to explain the 3 mortgages you've taken out on grandmother's house without telling anyone? The color drained from their faces faster than water down a drain. You recorded us? Victoria's voice pitched high with panic. I didn't have to. You all forgot I was there. The IT guy, sitting in the corner, fixing the router, setting up the smart TV, recovering your deleted files. I turned to Marcus. By the way, brother, you really should use stronger passwords than your birthday backwards. Marcus lunged across the table, but Harrison's associate stepped forward, blocking him. I wouldn't, Mr. Winters, Harrison warned. Assault would only complicate your current legal situation. What legal situation? Marcus snarled, but his bravado was cracking. I pulled up a presentation on my laptop, mirroring it to the boardroom screen. 5 years of evidence appeared in neat, organized folders. The one where Technova Industries' legal team has been documenting corporate fraud, embezzlement, and various other crimes committed using the subsidiary companies you've all been managing. The screen filled with email threads, financial records, security footage. You see, I explained, grandmother didn't just leave me her company. She left me the tools to protect it from all of you. Every subsidiary you've been running is actually a wholly owned entity of Technova. Every transaction you've made, every deal you've cut, every dollar you've stolen, it all ran through our servers. Our Uncle Robert's face was purple with rage. My servers, I corrected. My company. My decision what to do with the evidence. The room erupted into chaos. Accusations flew, chairs scraped against the floor, and my mother actually threw her remaining coffee at Victoria, apparently blaming her for something. Through it all, I sat quietly, watching the family that had dismissed and belittled me for 3 decades finally show their true colors in full display. Harrison restored order with a sharp whistle. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Mr. Douglas has a proposal. The boardroom looked like a battlefield after the smoke had cleared. Makeup was smeared, ties were loosened, and the careful facades my family had maintained for years lay in ruins. They sat in their chairs like defendants awaiting sentencing, which, in a way, they were. Here's what's going to happen, I said, standing at the head of the table where Uncle Robert usually held court. Each of you has a choice to make. Option 1. I turn over everything I have to the authorities. The FBI has a whole task force dedicated to financial crimes, and I'm sure they'd be fascinated by what I've collected. You wouldn't, my mother whispered. We're family. Family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't mock and belittle each other. Family doesn't treat one member like a servant while living off the fortune his grandmother built. I clicked to the next slide, showing individual folders for each person in the room. Marcus, your embezzlement totals $3.7 million over 4 years. Creative accounting, but not creative enough. Victoria, insider trading worth approximately $2 million in illegal gains. Uncle Robert, kickbacks from construction contracts totaling $5.2 million. Should I continue? The silence was deafening. Option 2, I continued, is redemption. You sign over all claims to grandmother's estate, return every penny you've stolen, and agree to a restructuring of the family trust under Technova's oversight. You'll receive a generous monthly allowance, Enough to live comfortably, but not extravagantly. Think of it as an early retirement package. That's extortion, Marcus shouted. No, Harrison interjected. It's remarkably generous, considering the alternatives. Prison time for these charges would be substantial. There's also option 3, I added, pulling up a new document. For those who choose it, you can leave with nothing. Walk away from the family, the money, everything. Start fresh somewhere else. I'll even provide a modest severance, $50,000, to help you begin again. But you never contact me or any family member who chooses to stay again. And if we refuse all 3? Uncle Robert's voice was defiant, but his hands were shaking. Then I call the FBI agent who's waiting in the lobby downstairs. Agent Sarah Hartley, in case you're wondering. We've had several productive meetings about this case. The blood drained from every face in the room. You planned this, Victoria said slowly, realization dawning in her eyes. For years, you planned this entire thing. No, I corrected her. Grandmother planned this. She saw what her children and grandchildren had become, entitled, greedy, cruel to anyone they saw as beneath them. She knew if she left the fortune openly, you'd tear each other apart for it. So she hid it, gave you just enough to reveal your true natures, and trusted me to clean up the mess. I pulled out a letter, worn from years of reading and rereading. She left me this. Would you like me to read it? Without waiting for an answer, I began. My dearest Douglas, if you're reading this, then my plan has come to fruition. I've watched you grow from a quiet, brilliant child into a man of integrity, despite the cruelty of those who should have loved you most. Your family has forgotten what it means to build something from nothing, to work until your hands bleed, to sacrifice for something greater than yourself. They've become vultures, circling what they believe is their birthright. But you, my dear boy, you understand. You've built your own empire in the shadows, never boasting, never demanding recognition. You've shown kindness to those who showed you none. You've maintained your humanity in a family that's lost theirs. The company I'm leaving you isn't just about money. It's about redemption. Give them the chance to choose better, to become better. Some will surprise you. Others will disappoint you. But you'll finally be free to live without their shadow. All my love, Grandmother Elizabeth. My mother was crying now, not the pretty tears she produced at galas for sympathy, but raw, ugly sobs that shook her entire frame. She knew, she gasped. She knew what we'd become. She loved you anyway, I said softly. All of you. That's why she gave you this chance. This is your opportunity to prove her faith wasn't misplaced. One by one, they made their choices. My mother was the first to speak, her voice hoarse. Option 2. I'll take option 2. I want to try to be better. Uncle Robert slammed his hand on the table one last time, then deflated. Option 2, he muttered. Victoria nodded silently, tears streaming down her face. Marcus was the last to decide. He stared at me with a mixture of hatred and something else, perhaps respect, perhaps fear. You were never just the IT guy, were you? He asked quietly. No, I admitted. But you all needed to believe I was. It was the only way to see who you really were when you thought no one important was watching. He laughed bitterly. All those times I insulted you, belittled your work, made fun of your cheap clothes and old car. I could have bought 100 Ferraris, I confirmed. But that would have ruined everything. Besides, I actually like my Honda. It's reliable. That broke something in him. He actually smiled, a real smile, not the shark-like grin he usually wore. Option 2, he said finally. But I have one question. Why didn't you just take everything and leave us with nothing? After everything we did to you, why offer redemption? I thought about it for a moment, then pulled up one more photo on the screen. It was from 15 years ago, a family Christmas before Grandmother got sick. We were all laughing, genuinely happy, gathered around her as she told one of her infamous stories about building her company. Marcus had his arm around my shoulders. Victoria was leaning against me. My mother was looking at us with real pride. Because, I said simply, somewhere underneath all the greed and cruelty, you're still my family. Grandmother believed you could find your way back to being the people in this photo. I'm hoping she was right. Harrison and his team prepared the paperwork with remarkable efficiency. Within 2 hours, everything was signed, sealed, and legally binding. The stolen funds would be returned through accounting corrections to avoid scandal. The family members would receive their allowances through a trust one would manage. And Technova Industries would officially emerge from the shadows as one of the country's most innovative technology companies. As the meeting concluded and people began to file out, Marcus approached me. The Honda Civic thing, he said awkwardly. That really bothers me. You could have had any car in the world, and you chose to let me mock you for driving an old Honda. It wasn't about letting you mock me, I explained. It was about understanding that your mockery said more about you than it did about me. Besides, do you know what I did with the money I saved not buying expensive cars? He shook his head. I funded coding schools in low-income neighborhoods. Sent about 300 kids to college who couldn't have afforded it otherwise. One of them just got accepted to MIT. Marcus stared at me for a long moment. Jesus, Doug. We really are bastards, aren't we? Were, I corrected. Past tense. What you choose to be now is up to you. As the boardroom emptied, I stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city skyline. Harrison approached, briefcase in hand. That was remarkably well handled, Mr. Douglas. Your grandmother would be proud. I hope so, I said, then asked the question that had been bothering me. In your professional opinion, did I do the right thing? Giving them another chance. Harrison considered this carefully. In my 40 years of handling family estates, I've seen inheritances destroy more families than I can count. This is the first time I've seen one potentially save a family. Whether it works or not, you've given them something more valuable than money. You've given them the opportunity to earn forgiveness. After he left, I remained at the window as the sun began to set over the city. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I opened it to find a message from Victoria. Thank you for not giving up on us. Also, I'm sorry about the children's table thing. That was cruel. Then another from Marcus. Dinner next week? My treat. And I promise not to make a single IT joke. Even Uncle Robert. Your grandmother would be proud. I'm sorry it took this for me to see it. Finally, my mother. I love you. I've always loved you. I just forgot how to show it. Can we start over? I smiled, typing back a simple response to each. Let's try. The Honda Civic was waiting for me in the parking garage, looking slightly out of place among the Bentleys and Tesla. I patted its hood affectionately before getting in. Tomorrow, Technova Industries would go public with me as CEO. The business world would be shocked to discover that the company they'd been trying to identify for years had been run by someone they'd never heard of. But tonight, I was going to drive home in my reliable old car, order Chinese takeout, and maybe play those video games my family always mocked. The ones that had led to innovations in virtual reality technology worth hundreds of millions. As I drove through the city streets, I thought about grandmother's letter one more time. She'd orchestrated all of this, not the cruelty, but the opportunity for redemption. She'd known I would have the strength to withstand their dismissal, the intelligence to build an empire, and most importantly, the compassion to offer them forgiveness they didn't deserve. The IT guy. I laughed at the title that had caused me so much pain over the years. They'd never understood that in the modern world, the person who controls the technology controls everything. Every email, every transaction, every secret, it all flows through systems that someone like me designs, builds, and maintains. But more than that, they'd never understood that true power isn't about money or status. It's about knowing who you are, building something meaningful, and having the strength to lift others up even when they've tried to push you down. My phone rang as I pulled into my apartment complex. It was my assistant, my real assistant, not the family who'd treated me like one. Mr. Douglas, the press release is ready for tomorrow's announcement. Also, the Times wants an exclusive interview about the company reveal. Schedule it for next week, I said. Tomorrow's going to be busy enough. Yes, sir. Oh, and sir? Your mother called the office. She wanted to make sure you knew that Sunday dinner is at 6, and she's making your favorite, lasagna. I smiled. Tell her I'll be there. As I climbed the stairs to my one-bedroom apartment, which I'd kept despite being able to afford a mansion, because it reminded me where I came from, I realized something. The revenge I'd planned for so long had transformed into something else entirely, a chance for redemption for all of us. The IT guy had fixed one more broken system. Only this time it was his own family.